Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the NXT review for the 20th of April 2010. Highlights from the previous week. And then they go into basically a ball pit, kind of rubber bouncy house sort of thing where they use pugil sticks. If you've watched American Gladiators, you'll know that they used to call this the joust, only this time it's not as elevated as the joust was. This is completely wasting of time. I don't see how it would have led to anything of value. The winner of this does, however, get immunity. David Otunga and Heath Slater go at it in this goofiness, and ultimately Wade Barrett and others do as well. Finally, we do get a win later in the program, but I'm not even going to cover this. I mean, it's basically an elimination style thing that is nothing but a waste of time. Otunga basically steps off and complains. Then there's highlights from Raw, which, again, time wasting. Wade Barrett is highlighted here pretty well. The Miz and Heath Slater, and people talk about the different pros. Some think Slater has something unique. Others think he's kind of goofy. Anyway, we finally get to a match about 15 or so minutes into this 50-minute show. David Otunga with Pro R-Truth. Can't believe R-Truth's there nearly 10 years later. Against Justin Gabriel with Pro Matt Hardy. Gabriel has been pushed pretty aggressively here. Otunga, kind of doing the A-list heel thing, which I guess is pretty okay. Why they do short elimination style with this, and then within less than a year, they do something more along the lines of just a longer form. I don't know. Anyway, Otunga uses power. Gabriel uses speed, as mentioned in previous versions of this review series. Gabriel has, in fact, wrestled across the world, mainly South Africa and surrounding area, for several years before getting here. WWE doesn't bother to acknowledge this because, why be professional and treat this like a sport? Anyway, Otunga nails a couple of elbows, punches, and kicks, basics there. Ultimately, Otunga gets some ride time on his opponent here and cranks up on a reverse chinlock, tries to get a submission, does not get a submission out of young Mr. Gabriel. Gabriel, who I don't remember much of his WWE career at the time. My memory for wrestling in the last 10 years has been abysmal. I can go back and watch things and enjoy it as though I'm seeing it for the first time because, quite honestly, things died probably around 2007-8 in terms of memorable wrestling outside of a match here, match there. Certainly, weekly television wasn't memorable. Otunga sends his man to the outside. Otunga then gets a couple of kicks and a attempted sunset flip. Gets the man over and, in fact, gets a sunset flip win. Does the benefit of Justin Gabriel. Odd that he doesn't use his finish here, but they're kind of going in a different direction with him. More of the brawling, sprawling with the pugil sticks, and that ends up being, more goofiness. Tarver, who has refused to compete in any of the competitions, is out there. And he's, basically looking for opportunities to be one of the better guys in NXT. Out comes Darren Young. Punk basically says Tarver isn't to be taken terribly seriously. Young is out there and basically Punk puts him over as even surprising him. Highlights from the previous week with the go-behind, slip-behind win by Darren Young. The first win for Young in the NXT season is over a pro, which doesn't really make a whole bunch of sense, but again, this whole concept doesn't terribly make a great amount of sense. Then we go into a three-way with Darren Young against Tarver and Sheffield. I guess the winner gets some form of immunity here. Young, basically the only babyface among the bunch, doesn't really get that much of a babyface reaction, but is working the match as though he should. Clotheslines one guy over the top, sidesteps the other, and Young kind of doing the triple threat, which triple threat matches have been overdone. This isn't Smoky Mountain in 94. This isn't ECW in 93, 94, 95. And they're overdone and abysmally bad the majority of the time. Sheffield manages to get a clothesline in the corner, and ultimately, Darren Young is made to look sympathetic. Tarver snaps him over with a vertical suplex, snap over, and Sheffield and Tarver can't decide who's going to beat the man here. Eventually, Sheffield and Tarver are left to their own devices, one-on-one, as Young gets eliminated. Sheffield manages to get a couple of hard shots, clotheslines, and splashes, and actually Young not eliminated, just out of the match for a while. So out of the match so long it looks like he's eliminated. That's what I wrote here, and it does apply. Just kind of remembering kind of the psychology that falters in triple threat and multi-person matches is you never know what's coming. A nice roaring elbow, though, by Darren Young. By this point, the crowd has figured out they don't have a choice but to really cheer Young, so they do cheer his hope spots, including the roaring elbow and the flying shoulder tackle that he utilizes upon occasion. Gets Tarver up and over in a backdrop, which doesn't exactly look pretty, but gets the job done there. And then, kind of do see Young go to the top rope, get advantage where he can, and obviously advantage while Sheffield is on the outside of the ring. However, Luke Gallows sends his man in on what's there, and a kind of an interesting turnabout finish. And Gallows tries to cost Young the win, but actually causes him to win. Endorsements for Heath Slater from various pros about how far he's come. Many people think he wouldn't make it this far, and again, we see the pugil stick wars continue. Skip Sheffield is victorious with those. Obviously, him being kind of the gladiator type is kind of a big deal there. He talks about this being his big chance, etc. and so forth. Kind of looks a little goofy if you want to tell you the truth, but obviously Skip Sheffield becoming Ryback over time is a pretty big thing here. And so we're talking about eliminations forthcoming. We're also looking at an interesting match with Chris Jericho, who I believe is still the WWE champion on either Raw or SmackDown at the time. Hard to remember because, again, title reigns have been inconsequential for years at this point. But I will say this match is worth going out of your way to see. It's just a 5-minute short little match, but the selling of Heath Slater, who, when you look back at how far he came through the developmental system and all that he accomplished, you can't help but notice that the guy really does have something. He's been plagued with injuries over the last little while. To think that he's, kind of been wasted and squandered over a 10, 15-year career here is just sad. And that's the one thing that bothered me about the releases over the past couple days when I record this is guys, and no ladies were released that I can recall, but eventually ladies, waste years of their career, bumps on their bodies for subpar creative, and it truly does make me sad. Anyway, Wade Barrett on the outside, cheering on the fact of his pro Chris Jericho being successful. Jericho dominant as he should be as the world champion on a brand. However, they do give Heath Slater enough hope spots that the crowd is solidly behind him, and he does get up and, do some bump and feed for some clotheslines, leaping forearms and the like, and Slater manages to catch the man in the corner, hits him pretty hard, gets at him pretty good, and ultimately makes a go of it to the best of his ability. Irish whips and a kick by Jericho. Jericho doesn't necessarily want to quit, and Slater hits a neck breaker, nearly beating Jericho in this particular contest. Of course, 2 minutes left in the program. You know that Jericho's going to pull it out, and he eventually does. But Slater looks good, and you could actually see that if they had followed up appropriately with things here, um, that would have been interesting. But actually, in fact, and as I say that, Slater does get put in the attempt at the walls of Jericho. And a roll up and a roll through, and Slater actually gets the victory. So at one point, somebody wanted to do something big with Slater, because to defeat Jericho. Jericho rages as the program goes off the air. We'll be back with more right after this, but to think, Jericho lost a fall to Heath Slater in the plug for this show, and then they really don't do anything with the bunch as it was. Just makes me sad. Anyway, until next time, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment.